So it's lovely to be with you as we head to the end of 2020. A tough year. I'm sure all of you are looking forward to a break. I want to look at what 2021 might hold for us. But just to step back a little bit into the US election. As we were watching the end of the counting, it looked like mayhem. And during that period, I read an article by the scholar Larry Diamond. And what he said, he was counseling the US on how to bolster its democracy. And I was really happy to see South Africa come up 3 times. The first time, he said, is that we've built in this concept, the institution of the public protector. And we don't have the great public protector. The incumbent at the moment is partisan and sometimes incompetent, as the courts have found. But Thuli Madonsela really showed us what the office could be. And unlike in the US, we have a very effective electoral agency in the IEC.
Distinguished guests and fellow South Africans, for the 6th time in 26th year in a row, the majority party in the National Assembly of South Africa will be the African National Congress with 230 seats.
That was Vuma Mashinini, the chairperson of the IEC, calling the 2019 election result. In election after election, South Africans believe in the credibility of the outcome of elections, even if they don't always like the result itself. The other thing Larry Diamond drew to our attention was that we have a very strong media, which is great for democracy. That was the Daily Maverick on the Gupta leaks, which really, I think, changed the outcome of the story of state capture in South Africa. So graft is often baked into our systems very sadly, but our media is very vigilant. And people like Reddy Klabi, for example, influencers on the media and on social media, often raise the vital debates and they make viral a vital truth. Diamond also drew attention to the Constitutional Court, an apex court that is sovereign. Its judgment, for example, on the former President Jacob Zuma was the beginning of his end. So I want to make this a presentation of hope, but not to wear rose-colored spectacles, as I sometimes can do. We're glad to say that in the end, the US chose for democracy rather than against it. And I found the speech by Kamala Harris, the Vice President, very inspiring and quite transformational.
So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act." And what he meant was that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it, and there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future.
Back home, 2021 will be defined by the local government elections. In the last local government elections, the ANC was shocked to lose Johannesburg and Pretoria or Tshwane. Residents just deserted the party in droves as service levels plummeted. These cities have massive budgets. Johannesburg, 73 billion rand, Tshwane a little less, but services in both are appalling. The heartland, Johannesburg, a city I love dearly, is in serious dysfunction, even though Johannesburg and Gauteng, the province that we're in, are responsible for 30% of our GDP. Power outages, Water outages, pipe bursts are quite regular, and billing problems are so acute that people have complained about being cut off for ridiculous amounts even while querying their bills. The other week, I began to do stories on this, and I found, unbelievably, that there are 93,000 potholes in Johannesburg. Not an exact figure, but you get it, and I'm sure if you drive here, you'll know that story. And potholes for me are just a symbol of dysfunction. Our electricity tariffs are amongst the highest in the world and also the highest in our country. It's much worse in the sticks, where municipal government really has collapsed. And this video on carte blanche from Lekwa really tells the story.
The people of Standerton have had enough. Constant power outages, polluted water and raw sewage in the streets have become a daily reality in Lekwa municipality. This is what residents of Standerton had to resort to, dumping their rubbish right at the door of the municipality to try and get their attention. When you have ineffective service delivery, this is what happens.
So in 2021, I asked myself, will we vote for the beautiful country, for a better beautiful country, or again for partisan politics? Are people beginning to vote on services or still with their political party affiliations? Everywhere else, though, I see hope and I see green shoots. The series of interest rate cuts by the SA Reserve Bank have seen mortgage applications soar, and that tells you that people have confidence. It's a Me Too moment for me. We have found a new home, and I sold mine in a week, which tells you about the pace of a property market picking up. And look, I know this is not a universal truth given the economic and other impacts of COVID-19 and the lockdown, but this man has managed the COVID-19 outbreak well.
There can be no better way to celebrate our South Africanness than joining the global phenomenon that is spreading across the world, and that is the Jerusalem Dance Challenge. So I urge all of you to take up this challenge on Heritage Day and show the world what we are capable of.
So every day the health department ensured that very accurate numbers were in our hands, on our phones, so that we could make decisions about how to live. The COVID app has been an example of the clever use of technology for a public purpose, and the science-led politics of how COVID-19 was led tells you a very big story that we've changed since the mishandling of the HIV and AIDS pandemic. There are 3 vaccine trials ongoing in our country, and a second wave may well be a reality, but my go-to scientist, Dr. Ridwan Suleiman of the CSIR, says that we are not yet at that second wave. In fact, we are quite far from it.
So South Africa has reached the peak and in fact is on a downward trajectory in terms of this particular outbreak of COVID-19. The reality is that we're certainly well placed to go to level 1 immediately, but that doesn't mean that we can go back to pre-COVID type of lifestyles. And the specific restrictions which are extremely important to retain is the avoiding of mass gatherings in whatever form, because those are exactly the type of situations that lends itself to what we call super spreader events, which means that if there's one infectious person in that place, all of the people that are susceptible, that haven't been infected, all of them are at risk of becoming infected over a very short period of time, and then we're going to get an explosion of cases.
That was a video of Professor Shabir Mahdi, a leading voice taking us through this strange year. And what he says is that we could head into a second wave if we don't do the right thing. But before we get to the right thing, our scientists have also proven themselves excellent leaders through this period. That was Dr. Glenda Gray, who's part of one of those vaccine trials and who has been a brave voice throughout this year. For Africa, the WHO's Dr. Matshidiso Moeti has brought every smart she knows to bear in helping our continent get through the pandemic. It's not completely through it, but it hasn't been a story of horror and of death. She has managed the Ebola outbreak, TB, HIV and AIDS, and all that experience has come to bear to ensure that Africa's numbers are lower, but that our death rates are much lower than the rest of the world. These are images of Europe and of London in a second lockdown. Back at home, next month, many of us will head out on holiday to exhale after a tough year. So the beautiful beaches of Durban and of Cape Town, and I think we all deserve that break. The Daily Maverick Science Collective wrote a wonderful article the other day in which they were showing how you could have a good break, go on holiday, but still be safe. And this is what I learned from them. So they said choose a pod of people to be with so that you keep your circle quite tight. Be outdoors. Wear a mask as often as you can and perhaps get one of the thinner, easier to wear masks. Sanitize, 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 and choose smaller groups. That's difficult for us South Africans who love big groups of people, but that was their advice. So what we have had in South Africa is a very high caseload, but quite a low death rate, and we should try and keep it that way. Now, it's been not quite the year of the orange overalls, of seeing the Skelms in jail, but gosh, there has been movement. Shamela Batoy, the head of the National Prosecuting Authority, and Hermione Cronje have gotten into gear. They promised that by the end of September there would be movement, and indeed the stories of the final quarter of 2021 really has seen many tender kingpins arrested and appearing in court.
Heads are rolling and prized positions owned by those linked to the asbestos tender deal are being forfeited. The supercars which were attached to the Blackhead Consulting, owned by Edwin Sodi, were also attached. The NPA says at the end of the process, the assets will be auctioned. The amount accumulated from the sales will return to state coffers. Those who are not listed but have any assets belonging to the accused will also be affected.
That was Edwin Sodi's cars being seized. Edwin Sodi is a businessman from the Free State, and his is a marquee case that has been before the Zondo Commission of Inquiry and also the first big arrests of the state capture kingpins. So I'll tell you a little bit about him. Edwin Sodi won a tender worth about 300 million rand. This was to fix the asbestos that still is in many roofs in townships in the Free State. It's a carcinogenic property and many people have become ill through the years, either our mine workers or people who had asbestos in their homes. So only 3% of the money meant to make people safe, meant to take the asbestos out of those homes in order that they would be more safe, was in fact used for that purpose. The rest of it went on bling cars, which you saw being seized, on a series of houses that would make your eyes stand on stalks, which Edwin Sodi bought with that money, and obviously bribes paid to a whole range of his network. In court as well has been the theft of funds for state funerals. The company LTE Construction has also been charged. LTE Construction behind the Guyani Dam project, 1.4 billion rand. People still don't have safe running water, and yet so much has been spent. The Bosasa bribery cases are also in court. This is a video of Vincent Smith and Angelo Agrizzi in court, both of whom the bribed and the briber were charged in November. The heroes of this moment have been Batoy, Hermione Cronier, but also the Hawks under Godfrey Labia and Andy Motibe's Special Investigation Unit. Those four working together, I think, have given us greater confidence that we can make a dent in corruption. I want to try and keep the green shoots coming, the moments of hope. In this South African Reserve Bank presentation to Parliament, you'll see that our debt is very deep, that our growth drop has been more perilous than initially found. But what these charts show you is that the economy has bounced back more quickly than we thought it would. Many sectors were back up to their 2019 levels and even beyond that. The only one that you still see drooping there was the fitness, beauty and health, because gyms opened much later than others. And obviously what should give us great hope is the South African DNA, the spirit of giving and of doing. I've loved the very many transformations, the humor, our can-do spirit. Something like restaurants being turned into feeding schemes all around the country. While they were closed, the owners decided we can use our skills and our big kitchens to feed people who were so hungry. People who started community action networks. That is just people like you and I thinking how we're going to come together as a community, start soup kitchens, start vegetable gardens to feed the very many people who were desperate through this lockdown. To end, I found these insights in what happened to consumer patterns really, really interesting. How has 2020 changed us? The Financial Times got Nielsen to do a study to see what had happened to how we consume. And I just found this really interesting. So, you may know this, but flour sales went right up because people were baking bread, lots of bread. People were drinking more gin. Gin sales went right up. The next one I know personally, popcorn sales. We needed comfort. We were sitting at home watching TV, so those sales went up. Netflix subscriptions through the roof. And obviously, as things got a bit warmer here, ice cream sales also climbed. So many ice cream companies, like Paul's, for example, in South Africa, done extremely well through this. And I hope just a moment to make you smile. The sale of deodorants were right down. So obviously, personal grooming came down too. And makeup sales really went through the floor, 30% down around the world on average. I look forward to chatting to you some more about 2020, but also about what 2021 may hold for us.